Adolf Hitler.
Dann tritt für mich ein, so wie ich für dich eingetreten bin.
What made him one of the most controversial figures in world history? As the leader of Nazi Germany and the instigator of World War II, Hitler not only launched one of the bloodiest conflicts ever, but also left behind a devastating legacy that the world can never forget. His actions plunged humanity into one of its greatest crises, leading to the deaths of over 60 million people and leaving scars that still linger in our collective memory. So what led Hitler down this path of violence and destruction? How did his actions and decisions shape the world we live in today? Join us in this video as we explore the life of Adolf Hitler, one of history's world changers. Early life and background. Post-World War I, Germany was a nation devastated not only economically, but also in spirit. The Treaty of Versailles placed massive war reparations on Germany, leaving a deep sense of resentment among its people. The German national identity was wounded, the economy in shambles, and society in crisis. It was in this turbulent context that a young Adolf Hitler was born to a middle-class family in Austria. From an early age, he harbored dreams of becoming an artist. However, repeated rejections from the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts left him bitter and insecure, leading him to see himself as an unrecognized genius. Hitler's youth lacked the warmth and stability of family support, particularly from his strict and demanding father. These experiences fostered feelings of discontent, isolation, and even hostility toward society. During his years in Vienna, Hitler continued to live in poverty, struggling to fit in and maintain steady work. It was here that he began to develop strong racial prejudices, heavily influenced by anti-Semitic propaganda circulated by far-right groups in Vienna at the time. This marked the first step in Hitler's descent into extremist ideology, ultimately blaming Jewish people for his own hardships. When World War I erupted, Hitler quickly enlisted in the German army, fueled by intense national pride. To him, the war was a chance to prove himself and find a higher purpose. However, Germany's defeat and the harsh conditions imposed by the Treaty of Versailles left Hitler and many other Germans feeling disappointed and humiliated. This sentiment became a powerful catalyst for someone like Hitler, who already had a tendency to blame external forces, such as Jewish people and communists. After the war ended, Hitler returned to a bleak reality similar to that of many other German veterans, unemployed, directionless, and filled with resentment toward the German government, which he viewed as traitorous. Yet this period also marked a turning point for Hitler, as he discovered the power of words and his own oratory skills. Drawn to politics, he realized it was a means not only to seek power, but also to restore Germany's glory. In 1919, the military assigned Hitler to monitor the political activities of far-right groups. This led him to the German Workers' Party, DAP, a small organization with strong anti-Semitic and anti-communist ideologies. Instead of simply observing, Hitler found that he aligned closely with the party's radical ideas and quickly joined, beginning to showcase his persuasive speaking skills and exert a strong influence. Through powerful, charismatic speeches, Hitler began to attract attention and build a loyal following. Recognizing his impact, he resolved to transform the German Workers' Party into a political tool to achieve his greater ambitions. Hitler actively rebranded the party as the National Socialist German Workers' Party, NSDAP, infusing it with themes of national unity and promoting the Aryan race. He clearly defined his enemies, including Jews, communists, and democratic political forces, whom he blamed for Germany's dire condition, crafting a leadership image in the true agenda. Aware of the power of words, Hitler wielded his speeches as a powerful tool to ignite German patriotism and stir deep-seated resentment among the people. Through his speeches, he crafted an image of himself as a savior, a sole leader who could rescue Germany from despair and restore its standing. This was a shrewd psychological strategy. Hitler wasn't merely seeking support, but rather drawing people into a shared vision that he positioned himself as uniquely able to achieve. Hitler's true aim extended far beyond a political party. He sought to establish a totalitarian state where all power rested in a single person, himself. He came to realize that only absolute authority would enable him to fulfill his vision of a greater Germany and a racially pure Europe. This drove him to relentlessly solidify his influence within the party and eliminate any opposition. The failed coup and the resolve to fight. In 1923, Hitler and other Nazi leaders staged a failed coup in Munich, known as the Beer Hall Putsch. Although the uprising was unsuccessful and Hitler was imprisoned, this event presented him with an unexpected opportunity. During his time in jail, Hitler wrote Mein Kampf, My Struggle, a book detailing his ideology and his plan to transform Germany into a European-dominating empire. This was a clear signal that Hitler's ambitions extended far beyond saving Germany. He aimed to control Europe and eventually the world. After his release from prison, Hitler shifted tactics. Rather than resorting to violence, he chose to pursue power through legal political channels. Using shrewd political maneuvers, he solidified his position within the Nazi Party, building a highly disciplined organization with paramilitary groups like the SA and SS to suppress any opposition. This strategic shift allowed Hitler to gradually win over various segments of the German population and expand the Nazi Party's influence on the national political stage. Rise to power and consolidation of control. Finally, in 1933, Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany. Soon after, he set his plans in motion to dismantle democracy and concentrate all power in his hands. He ramped up propaganda, using media to spread hateful ideologies, and rally the German people behind his vision of a powerful German empire, even one that was ready for war. Hitler was no longer just an individual. He had become the symbol of Nazi ideology. With absolute power and a fiercely loyal following, Hitler assumed the title of Führer, the supreme leader of Germany. His goal was now to implement the expansionist and racial purification plans he had envisioned for years. The rise of the Nazi Party and the path to war. The rise of the Nazi Party, led by Adolf Hitler, transformed Germany's political landscape. Promising a glorious future for Germany, Hitler manipulated the fears and hopes of the public, turning the Nazi Party into a dominant force. In 1933, Hitler officially became Chancellor of Germany, and soon after, he seized full control, establishing a totalitarian state. One of Hitler's most horrific decisions was to implement policies targeting Jewish people and other minority groups. This led to the Holocaust, a genocide that saw over 6 million Jews murdered in concentration camps. Hitler believed that Jewish people were responsible for Germany's crises and decline, and his policies became a symbol of inhumane cruelty and one of history's greatest atrocities. In 1939, Hitler ordered the invasion of Poland, sparking World War II. This decision not only plunged Europe into a devastating conflict, but also ignited a global war. Following Poland, German forces invaded several other nations, creating a nightmare for countries across Europe. However, Hitler's ambitions ultimately led to his downfall. His decision to invade the Soviet Union marked a major turning point in the war. The failed campaign left German forces on the defensive, and Hitler's misguided strategies resulted in widespread suffering, making the collapse of Nazi Germany inevitable. The aftermath. World War II left devastating consequences. Over 60 million lives were lost, and many major cities lay in ruins. European nations faced severe economic crises, and the world's image would never be the same. After the war, countries recognized the critical importance of unity and conflict prevention. The United Nations was established in 1945 to preserve peace and foster international cooperation. And its existence today remains a direct result of the desire to prevent similar disasters. World War II also led to the Cold War, as the world split into two opposing blocs under the influences of communism and capitalism. This tension persisted for over 40 years, shaping global politics and sparking new conflicts. The horrors of the Holocaust and Hitler's extreme policies serve as a painful lesson for humanity. Today, nations remember these events as a stark warning against extremism and racial discrimination. Hitler's legacy is not one of glory, but a solemn reminder for the future. Hypothetical scenario: Hitler's defeat of the Soviet Union and the rise of the Third Reich. If Nazi Germany had succeeded in defeating the Soviet Union and expanding its territory, the Third Reich could have stretched from Western Europe all the way to the Ural Mountains, the western border of Asia. With such vast lands and abundant resources taken from the Soviet Union, the Third Reich might have risen as a totalitarian superpower, potentially rivaling or even surpassing the United States. The fertile lands and mineral resources of the Soviet territories would have provided Germany with the means to sustain a powerful and self-sufficient empire. Brutal colonization policies. Hitler's plans included the expulsion and extermination of millions of Slavs from Soviet territory to establish Lebensraum, or living space, for Germans. These areas would have been colonized and transformed into German lands, with harsh policies aimed at reducing native populations to a slave labor class. Under such oppressive rule, the societies and cultures of Eastern Europe could have been completely devastated. Europe under a unified fascist regime. With Nazi Germany dominating Europe, a fascist political system would likely have become the standard. With the Nazis controlling all governments and judicial systems, nations would be forced into submission, potentially required to adopt Nazi laws and ideologies. Suppression of culture and thought. Indigenous European cultures and democratic values would have been erased or replaced by fascist and ultranationalist ideologies. Education, media, and cultural institutions would be tightly controlled to propagate Hitler's worldview. Core values like freedom, justice, and human rights would be ruthlessly suppressed. Divergent ideas would have no place, and citizens would live under strict censorship and surveillance. Continued racial purges and ethnic cleansing. Driven by Hitler's vision to purify ethnic groups deemed inferior, the Nazi regime would likely have continued its genocidal policies not only against Jews, but also against other ethnic and religious groups, including Slavs, Romani, Gypsies, homosexuals, and anti-fascist dissidents. Massive network of concentration and labor camps. Concentration and labor camps would have persisted and likely expanded to detain and exploit forced labor. Those not aligning with the Nazi vision of a pure race would face torture, forced labor, and execution. A large portion of Eastern Europe's population might have been eliminated or oppressed under Hitler's brutal policies. Long-term impact on culture, education, and ideology. If the Nazi Empire had endured, racial ideology and fascism would likely have become societal norms. European culture and education would have been completely reshaped to serve the Nazi agenda, eradicating democratic ideals and spreading racial hatred. Influence on youth. In a prolonged fascist empire, generations of youth would be raised from an early age in extreme nationalist and racist ideologies. Education would focus on glorifying the so-called master race and fostering hatred toward other ethnicities and nations. Elimination of human rights values. Human rights, freedom, and equality would have been completely eradicated from the educational and media systems of the Third Reich. Science and the arts would be tightly controlled, allowing only research and works that supported fascist ideology. If Hitler had succeeded in building the Third Reich, the world would be an entirely different place, one where freedom and human rights would not exist, replaced by control and oppression. Racial discrimination, hatred, and authoritarianism would dominate. Human values and freedoms would disappear, and a constant atmosphere of war, control, and fear would pervade everywhere. The world might not have progressed socially or ethically as it has today, instead sinking under fascist rule, leaving a bleak legacy for future generations. But this is only hypothetical, and it didn't happen. The harsh conditions and fierce resistance of the Soviet Red Army became a turning point. Hitler underestimated the strength and resilience of Soviet soldiers, especially their endurance through the brutal winter, leading to irrevocable defeats. Because of this, the world had a chance to rebuild, moving toward a sustainable future where peace and human rights form the foundation of progress. Adolf Hitler, a figure who changed the world, but not for the better. His legacy is not one of honor, but a stark reminder of the dangers of extremism, hatred, and racial discrimination. What about you? What do you think of Hitler's legacy? How do you think the world might have been different if he had never entered politics? Share your thoughts in the comments. Would you like to see more content about Adolf Hitler? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button if you found this video insightful. Join us as we explore more figures in our World Changers series.